Hello, everyone. This is Twinless Twin. We are recording a modern league today with Amulet Titan. This is one of the decks that did not play a companion and was still able to compete in the previous companion meta. And as such, I think that it's going to be a deck that is a big contender after the nerf for companion goes live this Thursday. So I figured might as well get a head start and start to learn the deck in case it's a deck that I want to play in any competitive Magic Online events in the future. I have played this deck a little bit in the past, but not before Dryad was printed. Now the deck relies heavily on Dryad, the big combination being Dryad plus Valakut, the Molten Pinnacle. With Dryad in play, all lands are mountains, including Valakut. So if you play Primeval Titan, you can get two Valakuts, or sometimes even just one Valakut and a Hanweir Battlements. And with these two combinations, you can both haste Primeval Titan, because Battlements lets you give a card haste. You can read here. And you get Valakut triggers because all of your lands count as mountains. That lets you deal a lot of damage. It lets you remove planeswalkers, remove problematic creatures, and it's just considered to be generally better than the previous plan of giving haste with the other haste land. So we're also playing Karn today, and in our Karn wish board we have Walking Ballista, some engineered explosives, Worm Coil Engine, the liquid metal coating to lock down lands, and Grafdigger's Cage. It's just an additional threat to play alongside your Primeval Titans, and together that gives us 4 Primeval Titans, 4 Summoners packs, 3 Karn and the Uro, as well as Dryad, being a pretty reasonable threat, which is just another reason why it's better than Azusa. Dryad is actually threatens to win the game on its own with Valakut, so if you have something like a bounce land, you can just continue to play that bounce land every turn to get Valakut triggers. Yeah, that's pretty much it for the deck. I am by no means a Amulet expert, so I'm just going to be working my way through this, and we'll go hop into our first match in the league. All right, we won the die roll. Our opponent also doesn't have a companion. Could be a mirror. I have to assume this hand is not great. So we have Dryad, we have 3 Arboreal Grazers, an Ancient Stirrings, and 2 lands. One of them is Teleria West, which could theoretically transmute for a Primeval Titan down the line, but with no Amulet, bounce lands aren't going to be nearly as effective, and the extra Arboreal Grazers are effectively mulligans in this hand because we're just not going to have lands to put into play. I'm going to go ahead and mulligan this hand. I think the deck mulligans pretty well from what I've heard. Joke's on us, a double bounce land hand. We'll be mulliganing to 5. Um, okay, this hand's not ideal, obviously, but it is probably better than an any 4. Our opponent mulligan to 6. We'll see if they mulligan down to 5 also. Um, but we'll go ahead and keep this hand. The cards we'll put on the bottom, though, is interesting. I think we want to keep the Amulet and the Explorer, and we definitely want to keep the lands. We can put Uro on the bottom here. The second card we'll put back is more interesting, though. I think we'll put back Karn, because we already have the Valakut naturally in hand, so there's a better chance that we'll be able to rely on that synergy. We can go ahead and lead on turn 1 Amulet. If we draw a bounce land, then we can play turn 2 Dryad, which is pretty strong. Turn 2 Dryad and Explore. And that'll set us up nicely for a good turn 3 potentially. We're up against Tron, so the race is on. Amulet does have a lot of utility lands, so if we manage to get down to Titan, then that'll be very nice for us. Okay, draw a Summoner's Pact. So now we're basically just looking to draw one bounce land, and then we should be on track for a turn 4 Primeval Titan. We draw another Summoner's Pact. Not good. Not a good draw. If we draw a bounce land here, then we are still on track for a turn 4 Titan, which may or may not be good enough. We'll see if our opponent has turn 3 Tron, and if they do have turn 3 Tron, what their threat is on turn 3. This matchup tends to be basically a race for who can either Titan first or assemble Tron, basically. So it should be, well, it'll be close depending on if we draw a land next turn. If we don't draw a land, I think that we're pretty far out of this game. But if we do, then we're in not a bad spot. Our opponent gets a Karn. They have a tower. They have a map. Okay, so there's a chance that they will not have 7 mana next turn. We draw a land, but it's not a great one. Radiant Fountain is not going to let us make a lot of mana. We'll get the Dryad down here and basically just hope that we draw a bounce land. 7 in our deck, or 8, I believe, actually. All right, so our opponent does crack the map. They assemble Tron, but only with 2 mana to spare. So if we are able to draw a bounce land here, we can go for a Ghost Quarter. Another Primeval Titan. Definitely not good. Okay, let's think about this here. So we could Summoner's Pact for Uro. I don't think that accomplishes much, if anything at all. I think we kind of just have to get in here and hope for the best in our next draw step. Ancient Stirrings is also a reasonable draw. Well, now our opponent's going to have access to a lot of mana, so we'll see what they can do. But Ancient Stirrings would have been able to find us a bounce land most likely, and a bounce land would have still been able to cast Primeval Titan and given it haste, so pretty unfortunate that we just completely bricked off there for a couple draw steps. Hex Drinker. Someone please tell me what is going on. Our opponent has a Hex Drinker in their Tron deck. And a Karn the Great Creator. Okay. If they just choose to level up this Hex Drinker, then we're still in this game, I guess. We can pick that guy off. If we draw a bounce land, just get some Amulet triggers. Our opponent minuses. I don't think there's anything relevant they can get here. They could get Ensnaring Bridge. But if they do and we draw a bounce land, then we can at least shoot down their Karn the Great Creator. So Liquid Metal Coating doesn't do anything yet. We're still just on a 1-turn clock. Basically, we have to draw it now or never. If we do draw it, then if we draw the bounce land, then we are in great shape. Okay, that is fine. Bounce land. Oh, another Primeval Titan is not going to do it for us. Do we have any way out? Well, we might as well pass and see what our opponent decides to do, but I am not optimistic about our chances this game. We drew all the threats in the world. Just no way to cast them. Our opponent's going to pick off one of our lands. We still have the ability to cast Primeval Titan. If we draw a bounce land, we can still cast Primeval Titan here. Our opponent goes for Wormcoil Engine. Did they have oh, it's just a main deck Wormcoil Engine. Well, we've got our work cut out for us. But, okay, now we are dead. If we had drawn a bounce land, we would have been in pretty good shape, I think. Still a while to go before we were going to draw one. Okay, post board. Negate seems strong. Beast Within can hit Tron lands as well as remove their threats, so that's probably reasonable. And is there anything else we want to consider? I think Force of Vigor is also somewhat reasonable for Expedition Map, as well as anything they might get off Karn. It just depends what we want to cut. Is Karn good in this matchup is the question. I'm leaning towards no. I think that Karn is probably not very impactful. And I'm looking at the cards. You could get Liquid Metal Coating as a way to start shooting down their lands, but if they just assemble Tron, then we're going to lose anyways. Uro also seems pretty bad. Reclamation Sage seems like a good card to bring in over Force of Vigor, I think, just as a more reliable way to remove artifacts, since you can tutor it with a Summoner's Pact. Alright, let's cut to Karn. We could consider Pact of Negation here. If the thought is that we get down a Titan on turn 4 and then just want to have one turn to protect it. It's probably reasonable over the Karn. Let's try this. Again, this matchup really comes down to racing more than sideboard cards, so I'm not too concerned about how we sideboard. This is one of those classic, has lots of lands and lots of acceleration but no payoff, but I think it is a keep. We have the Ghost Quarter. It's awkward that these castles are going to enter tapped, but we can go turn 1, castle tapped, turn 2, or we could go Cavern on Beast. That actually might be better. Turn 1 Cavern on Beast. Our opponent mulligans down to 4, and we have the Ghost Quarter for Tron, so this should be a pretty reasonable game to take down, assuming we draw one of our threats. We did make ourselves a little bit threat light, so maybe we boarded out too many threats. But yeah, we'll lead on turn 1 Cavern on Beast. We'll put a castle into play, and then we'll have the turn 2 Explore. We have a turn 3 Titan if we draw one. Or do we have a turn 3 Titan? I think we do. We have, okay, so next turn we go Explore, Valakut, Castle. Are we short? Start with Explore. Okay, so let's see here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, so what we can do is we don't have green to pay for castle yet, but we are able to Ghost Quarter ourselves to get the second green. So if we were to, make a generic mana with Cavern of Souls and then Ghost Quarter the Cavern of Souls, that's the same thing as turning the Ghost Quarter into a forest. It does set us back one land, but it may still be worth it. Alternatively, we can just Ghost Quarter our opponent, which is also probably not the worst. We'll see what we end up drawing. Send a message with this Arboreal Grazer. Let our opponent know that we mean business. Alright, our opponent's not even going to have Tron, so I think I feel pretty comfortable just getting down a Titan here. Okay, this... So if we get down a Titan, we do have to Ghost Quarter ourselves. I do think it's worth it, though. Our opponent is still far away from assembling Tron, so having one turn of just being able to even attack with the Titan should get the job done. Okay, what lands do we want to get here? We already used our Ghost Quarter, which is our most effective land against them. So I think we should be trying to work towards getting some blue down with the idea that we would like to transmute for a Dryad. So we should definitely get one Teleria West. I think that it might actually just be correct to get the second Teleria West, and next turn then we'll be able to tap both Teleria Wests. So next turn we have to pay for a Summoner's Pact. But then we'll be able to tap both Teleria Wests for blue, play the Simic Growth Chamber, and transmute. Actually, let's get Teleria West breeding pool here. Just go ahead and pass. I think our opponent was using Chromatic Star first, hoping to find another Tron land so that they could guarantee Tron, which they did. Alright, we do have to pay for this. Alright, so how can we do this here? Our goal is to be able to both have 3 mana floating and bounce the Teleria West to our hand, and you can only transmute as a sorcery. So we have to do that in our main phase. Is it possible? I'm not sure it is. Maybe we should just go for a Field of the Deadline here then, and next turn we can transmute for the Dryad. Field of the Dead lets us go a little bit wide here. So we could grab Field of the Dead and get... We could get Hanmir Battlements. That gives us a chance to potentially. We could potentially, if our Titan's removed by like a Karn or an Ulamog or something here, then we could potentially haste another one. So I like that line. We'll Ancient Stirrings. Not looking for anything in particular. I guess an Amulet would be not bad. Let's grab the Simic Growth Chamber, I guess. So we should have Ancient Stirrings pre-combat, actually. Because if we found Amulet, that might have opened up some possibilities for us. In terms of getting Simic Growth Chamber, untapping them, bouncing some random lands, and then transmuting. Our opponent has a Karn. We should have this covered with Summoner's Pact for Reclamation Sage, whatever artifact they end up getting. My guess is it's going to be Ensnaring Bridge. We also have a decent chance of just being able to Valakut our opponent out of the game if we were to draw Dryad or something. We do draw Dryad. Drawing the nuts feels good. Alright, so we'll make blue. We'll play this bounce land. We'll Valakut their Karn. If I didn't know that our opponent was very dead here because we're getting a Reclamation Sage, I would have actually done the math and seen if we could maybe kill them. But they are very, very dead here. Grab Summoner's Pact. Cast Pact for Reclamation Sage. And we'll Reclamation Sage the Ensnaring Bridge. Now our Titan gets to attack, and it is all over. Our opponent was on a mulligan to 4, and they're going to be on the play next game, so we're going to have to be very picky with which hands we keep to be able to put enough pressure on our opponent. I think generally we need turn 3 Titan hands to even contend. Turn 4 is just a little bit too slow against Tron when they're able to put a lot of pressure on you. I think this Force of Vigor is pretty reasonable as a way to just hope to grab a map. And what could we cut in exchange for that? The Pact of Negation might be bad on the draw, maybe. I don't want to cut any threats. I think we need to keep. Cutting a land doesn't seem bad here. I'm considering bringing back a Karn, maybe, because just having more threats is nice, and also Karn can go for liquid metal coating. It is a little bit slow, but it's also more turn 3 plays that are payoffs, so I think it's pretty reasonable to consider just to have that extra threat in the deck. Alright, let's try this. On the draw, 29, even 28 lands could very well be reasonable. This hand is so close to great, but I think it's a mulligan. It's pretty redundant in that it has 2 Summoner's Pact, 2 Dryads. Can't really play anything until turn 3, so we're going to have to mulligan this. If this had 1 land, it would be a great keep, or one forest, but as is, I don't think it can be kept. Alright, this hand's great. We'll keep and put back a bounce land. So it's a little bit awkward because the only land that we can play early on is the Ghost Quarter, and we have to bounce it if we want to play a bounce land, which means that our opponent could theoretically have turn 3 Tron if we don't draw another land. If it looks like they're on track to have turn 3 Tron, we might just have to Ghost Quarter and pray. Ideally, we draw a non-bounce land, so that is... Okay, perfect. So now we can go Ghost Quarter on turn 1. We can Vesuva Ghost Quarter on turn 2, potentially even. Or just draw the forest. Okay, so if we played the Vesuva here, then it would copy Ghost Quarter, which is not bad, but it does enter tapped, so we'd have to use the real Ghost Quarter, which means next turn we would play the Snow-Covered Forest and Ancient Stirrings. I think that's actually still pretty reasonable. We definitely want to Ghost Quarter them here. The question is, which land do we Ghost Quarter? We're going to Ghost Quarter in the draw step, so that they have an extra chance at drawing a basic. We'll hit the power plant. It feels like they might have just had natural Tron, but who knows? The interesting thing here is if they play mine and they don't reveal a power plant, if we Ghost Quarter them aggressively or not. Okay, they don't even play a Tron land, so we know that they're not going to be on Tron anytime soon. So the scary threat now is if they have a Karn. This Amulet's really nice against that possibility, as now we have a guaranteed Beast Within. A second Amulet is really good too. Now we're just setting up very nicely for a turn 5 Titan. They do have a Blast Zone. We can Ghost Quarter it if necessary, though. It'd be pretty aggressive. So next turn we can just hold off on playing this Amulet, the second Amulet, and just play one bounce land and then Beast Within whatever they might play this turn, if it needs to be. So if they play a Karn and get Liquid Metal Coating, we actually don't even necessarily need to Beast Within a Karn. I think we can beat it. And we actually want them to tap low a mana so they can't activate Blast Zone. Our opponent's Sylvan Scrying. Okay, so they will have Tron next turn if we don't do something about it. Alright, let's see. What's our plan here? So, we can Beast Within a land. That's a possibility. We could Beast Within the tower right now. We could go Ancient Stirrings plus Beast Within your tower, and then next turn we go second Amulet, play a bounce land, and then get Titan. We also have the Ghost Quarter available, and that also will not change when we're able to play a Titan. So we could go bounce land, bounce the forest. So Ancient Stirrings, bounce land, bounce the forest, Ghost Quarter. Ghost Quarter lets them keep the land. Beast Within seems pretty tempting here just because it actually completely sets them back a land. I think I am going to go for the Beast Within line. So let's start with an Ancient Stirrings. Castle technically changes the. Well, it doesn't change anything for them. So yeah, I'm just thinking if we don't want them to know that we have a Titan next turn, because technically right now we wouldn't without the second amulet. So if taking Castle would give them that extra information that we have a Titan next turn or Titan mana, then I wouldn't want to take Castle here. So if we take the Castle, then we play Simic Growth Chamber, bounce the Forest. We have access to 3 mana. Next turn they know Castle would be coming down, but that would only be 4 mana total. We wouldn't have enough to activate Castle. So we can take the Castle here without giving away that we have a potential Titan. Okay. And then let's play the Gruul Turf, just because that's playing it safe. We'll go ahead and Beast Within the Urza's Mine, as that's the card they searched for, which makes it less likely they have a duplicate. They could theoretically have a duplicate Urza's Tower in hand already. Beast Within now makes more sense, I think, than on upkeep. It gives them extra mana to crack map. It's not likely to be necessarily relevant, but they would have 3 mana right now instead of 2. I'm not sure if that would come up, but like if they had something like Sphere into Sylvan Scrying, I think that it's still correct to crack it or use the Beast Within now. The 3 damage is just so unlikely to be relevant. They Nature's Claim our Amulet. That's unfortunate. That gives them an extra turn. If they happen to have a if they have a Tron land, then that's a problem for us. Okay, so we can this turn we can play Snow Covered Forest, and after Snow Covered Forest, we can set up for a Titan next turn. We'll play out the Amulet, just so that it gives us more opportunities and they're less able to disrupt us. Let's go ahead and play this Amulet out. Our opponent is threatening Tron, but I don't think we really have an opportunity to Ghost Quarter them here. So if we Ghost Quarter our opponent here, then we don't have a Titan next turn, so we can't really risk that in this particular spot, unfortunately. If we... Yeah, we can't afford to Ghost Quarter our opponent here, and if they happen to have Tron randomly, then that's unfortunate, but it happens. Okay, we draw a Titan. We already had access to Titan, but drawing it means that we won't have to pay for Summoner's Pact, which means next turn we have a clean kill. So the other question here, is there any way that we can be able to Ghost Quarter our opponent? So we already used 1 Ghost Quarter, so we can't tutor 1 from our deck. We also already used the Vesuva, so we can't copy Ghost Quarter. So to be able to Ghost Quarter here, we'd have to be able to play 2 lands. I guess a possibility here is if we Summoner's Pact for Dryad, we're able to... Would we be able to play a Primeval Titan next turn? Because if we Pact for Dryad, then we can still Ghost Quarter our opponent to keep them off of that. They would be able to take out our Amulet, though, with Blast Zone if they wanted to. But we Pact for Dryad, we play 2 lands, the Snow Covered Forest and the Castle. Next turn, we untap, we pay 4, and then we can Growth Chamber. So we would be able to play a Titan. If they popped Blast Zone, then we would not be able to play a Titan. So if they popped Blast Zone, they take out our Amulet, but it does cost their entire turn. And then we can play the Growth Chamber, replay a land, and have Titan the turn after. And they're still 2 lands away from Tron. I think that this Dryad line is actually probably better. It gives us more opportunities. So we'll get Dryad. We'll play out these lands. And then we'll Ghost Quarter in the draw step. It doesn't really make a big difference here when we Ghost Quarter, I don't think. Oh, do they have Dismember here? Okay, that's pretty unfortunate for us. They do have the Dismember. So that changes things in terms of when we're able to get a Titan down. And if we even want to use the Ghost Quarter here. So next turn we have to pay 4. And we can make, let's see. Next turn there's no chance that we're able to play Primeval Titan without a ramp spell. If we were to draw another Dryad, then we can Dryad plus Titan here on next turn, but not using the Ghost Quarter here is pretty risky even then. So we'll hold fast with our plan to Ghost Quarter in the draw step. We'll hit the mine because they've already searched one. So it's less likely they find another. If our opponent has Karn the Great Creator here, that could be a bit of trouble, but we still should have plenty of mana. They have a map. They can search up another mine and play it. Okay, so our opponent is somewhat likely to have Tron as my guess based on how they're playing, but they also might not. And it's going to kind of come down to that. Hopefully they don't. We'll pay for this pact. Our Boreal Grazer doesn't really do anything, but I guess it'll let us get all of these lands into play. We'll bounce this forest. Drop the land into play and pass. Dismember was definitely something we should have considered from our Tron opponent, who wasn't really making any plays. So I guess in the future I'll be more cognizant of that type of removal. But the Dryad line did have a lot of upside in terms of both being able to get the Dryad into play then, and also still being able to have a Titan the next turn, as well as Ghost Quarter the opponent so they can't have Tron. It felt really tempting. We draw Summoner's Pact, so that gets Dryad. This turn, I think we just want a Titan, though. If we still had the Amulet, then we would have been able to do both. So wise of our opponent to use the Blast Zone. What do we fetch here? If we get Crumbling Vestige, we can actually put a Dryad into play this turn. But the question is, does it actually do anything? So if we get Crumbling Vestige and Valakut, then we play Dryad, but we don't actually do anything with it. We can also get a bounce land and tap we can get bounce land Valakut, or bounce land Crumbling Vestige and play the Dryad, but we can't attack. We also don't have an opportunity to haste our Titan here. Oh, we made a mistake. Okay, so we should have used the 2 forests and held the Gruul Turf, because if we had gotten a bounce land plus Hanwur Battlements, then we had the red mana to haste our Titan. So that was actually a pretty serious mistake on our part. We are missing out on one free Primeval Titan trigger. Hopefully that doesn't come back to cost us. Because of that, let's just get Field of the Dead and let's see. So right now, are we even getting zombies? We have 4 unique lands, so we'd be going up to 6. We aren't even getting zombies this turn, but we are setting it up. So let's get Field of the Dead Valakut. It means that next turn we'll be able to attack with the Primeval Titan. Hopefully they don't have Tron, and we'll also be able to get a Dryad. Our opponent has Karn the Great Creator. That's fine. We can attack it down with Primeval Titan plus Valakut triggers. They can tutor for Ensnaring Bridge. Not a problem. We'll just get a Vesuva off of the Primeval Titan trigger to make sure that we have, or not a Vesuva, a Teleria West, to make sure that we have a Summoner's Pact for Reclamation Sage. I also think that we should probably just kill our opponent here. So let's just try to do that. We'll search for Dryad. Play Dryad. Go to combat, attack our opponent. Get another Valakut, plus any land, and then we could just play this bounce land twice from our hand to get like 12 triggers total. We'll just get Valakut Teleria West to play it safe. I think even this is lethal. Probably don't even need to play the follow-up land. Our opponent takes 12, so they'd actually be at 1 life, but we do have the follow-up land, so we're safe here. Always, yes, I would always like to get a free lightning bolt with my Valakuts. Oh, this is a different one. All right, so we didn't play completely perfectly that game. We would have had, our opponent could have had Tron there and had some punishing draws because we forgot to haste our Primeval Titan, but we still were able to get there. So that just goes ahead and shows the power of Amulet Titan. We'll put our opponent down to 1, and then we will give them the bad news. Ironic that our opponent's name, I'm just noticing, is Tectonic Edge, and they're playing Tron. Seems like they would not be a big fan of Tectonic Edge. All right, and we win the match. We'll see you back for the next one.